Hello, testing. Mic check. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Yeah, I see there's a little hole in the middle of this hall here. Maybe if you see a cushion in front of you, maybe if you can move up, that helps me to relax a bit. I know you're shy, but trust me, it's a lot better than sitting up here. So if you see a cushion in front of you, please, if you don't mind, to take up that spot. How's everyone doing? Okay. So I think this activity we're gonna be here for the next hour or so, and so I want you guys to relax. Right, just relax. I think most of the Huntung are not here, and so let's just relax and just enjoy this time together. Because I know we're quite tired. I think many of us we've come in quite late or quite early this morning, and so I'm well aware of that. So I don't want to bore you guys to death. Okay. And so if you smile, smile. If you're feeling irritated or angry, that's perfectly fine too. That's very normal. I would probably be very irritated or angry if I had to come very late at night or early in the morning and have to deal with the heat or have to deal with so many people. And so it's very normal. So just relax and enjoy. I might not have to say much, and I honestly did not know I was answering questions at the end. And so we'll see how that goes. But if you have any questions that brew up, then please feel free to send it my way. But let us begin with just a little bit of breathing. I'd invite you to sit upright, to sit beautifully, even for a couple of minutes, or not a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds. Feel the connection between yourself and where you're sitting. You may like to put your hands on your abdomen. You may like to close your eyes and just feel the breathing flowing in and out naturally. You know, this breath is very special. This breath has always been here for us throughout moments of pain, suffering, of happiness, joy. Our breath has always been there and has never let us down. Breathing in, I'm aware that this is an in-breath. Breathing out, I'm aware that this is an out-breath. Breathing in, I feel my stomach, my abdomen rising. Breathing out, I feel my abdomen falling. So good afternoon, dear respected teacher, dear noble community. Today is Thursday, June the 22nd in the year 2023. We're sitting in the Rising Tide Meditation Hall at Magnolia Grove Monastery, Batesville, Mississippi, during our Youth Group Retreat, nourishing our togetherness. How many of us in here are tired? Raise it high. Don't be shy. All right, for those of you who are tired, I want you to breathe in, and when you breathe out, just okay, can we do that? So breathe in. Let it out. Let it out. Come on. One more time. Breathing in. I can't hear you. Come on. Let that out. Let that out. Like really let it out. Okay? Here we go. One more time. Breathing in. Okay, I have to do it with you guys. Let's do it again. All right? Breathing in. Maybe you feel better. I don't know. This is such a wonderful opportunity to sit here with you guys this afternoon. I myself grew up a little bit in the Yarang Phật, but as you see now, I've turned into a monk. And so I'm very similar to you guys. I think they did mention my age a bit, but I still feel very young at heart. But I'm no different than you guys. And so I just have a different kind of clothing, a brown robe and a bald head, but I still go through a lot of the things you guys go through, especially growing up as a Vietnamese American. And so, hopefully, what I have to share today can come with some fruit. I have a question for you guys. Maybe you're not expecting this question, but how many of us watch anime? Some of us? Okay. How many of us, those anime watchers, do you guys watch Demon Slayer? Okay. I see some monastics raising their hand too. Okay. Did you guys watch the last episode? Right? It was jaw-dropping, right? And how many of us did not watch the last episode? Okay, so I won't play spoiler, okay? And so I also watched that last episode. And if you don't know, I don't know, I see there's a lot of Dharma in Demon Slayer. And so I want to talk a little bit about that Dharma. But I think as you see, as the topic today is called living together harmoniously. So what does that mean to live together harmoniously? So when we talk about living together, maybe as a family, so with our parents, our siblings, living together as a society, wherever we are. So if we're in a city, I guess we have some friends from Austin, Oklahoma City, Wichita, Dallas, anywhere. You're living together in a community there, but then we also have living together as in the United States, living together as a human species on the earth. So living together harmoniously, what does that mean? And so I'll talk a little bit about my experience on that today. But first of all, going back to Demon Slayer, one of the interesting things that I find about this anime is that it's quite a story, but it starts with a family. And I'll just go very briefly over it. There's a brother and a sister. The sister turns into a demon, and he's trying to figure out how to turn his sister back into a human being. And so there's a lot of love and connection, and the story, it unravels as we continue going. And so I find a story to be very beautiful, but also it can be very dharmic. Not only that, there's other animes out there that can be very dharmic, but let's talk about this one. And the one that I see that is very dharmic and that relates to a lot of what we do here in the monastery is called total concentration breathing. I see some smiles, some laughing, yeah. Yeah, this is like Hashira training here, right? You guys can laugh, it's okay. So coming to the monastery, we're actually training ourselves in some way or some form. So we come here, we get the chance to hang out with our friends, but we also get a chance to be in touch with the practice of mindfulness. And in the practice of mindfulness, we get a chance to come back to ourselves, being aware of what is happening in this moment, and take care of ourselves. So just through breathing and training the breath, you can already take care of not only yourself as a human being, but also those around you. So how many of us, we love our family? Okay, I see some hands not, which is perfectly fine. If you don't raise your hand, it's perfectly fine. Like, we would do anything for our family, right? How much of us would do anything for our family? So if somebody was to come and, do something, we would be there to save our family or to help our family out, right? That's great. How many of us feel a lot of pressure from our family? Yeah. Even for me as a monk, I still feel a lot of pressure from my family. And my mom and my parents, they live literally like 2 minutes away from here. And so there's a lot of pressure that goes on that I put on myself when it comes to my family. But I want to talk about how do we harmonize amongst ourselves so that we can kind of release this pressure, this stress that we may feel at home, and so that we can just enjoy and be there for our family, but mostly for ourselves. And so I think you might hear a lot, how can we love somebody if we don't know how to love ourselves? So let me ask another question. How many of you love your parents or your siblings more than you love yourself? It's okay. How many of you love yourself more than you love anybody else? Okay, it's good. This is good. This is good. Kind of? Okay, great. How many of you guys know who you are? Okay, I see some hands who know they are. This is great. I'm gonna approach them later just to learn. How many of us are searching for ourselves? Yeah? Okay. So when it comes to the practice of mindfulness, and what hopefully you can get from here is maybe we can find a little bit of ourselves. But it actually starts with the breathing, coming back to our body, taking care of our mind, and taking care of, when we take care of our body and our mind, we're taking care of what is happening around us. And so you don't necessarily have to read the sutra in order to understand the Dharma. And so Demon Slayer or any kind of enemy can be a sutra. It can be a Dharma. And so let's talk about that a little bit. I'm going to go to the board and I'm going to share a little bit about what kind of practices there are that we can do in order to improve and understand ourselves and have harmony within ourselves. So in Buddhism, there's a sutra called the Sutra on the Four Establishments of Mindfulness. So this is a very, very basic sutra that we have in our practice, and it's really the meat and potatoes of our practice here. And so it's basically a sutra that we can take back, or a practice that we can take back and we can focus on within there. But that's not the sutra I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the sutra on the full awareness of breathing. Okay? But with that, with the four establishments of mindfulness, we have our body, we have feelings, we have our mind, and we have objects of our mind. today I want to focus on the first one, our body. So we all here, we have a body, right? We all here, we have feelings, right? We have a mind, and then we have what is called the objects of our mind. So maybe mental formations, or what comes up in our mind. If you want to learn more about these, you have to come back for another retreat. But today we'll talk about body and the full awareness of breathing. And so the full awareness of breathing is a way where we can hone our breath in order to be in touch with what is happening in the here and now. And so you hear a lot of the monastics will teach breathing in. I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out. I know I'm breathing out. Right? And the reason why we do that is so that with mindfulness, we can come back and be aware of what is happening. And so when it comes to each segment has 4 exercises for the breathing. It might sound a little boring now, but it will get exciting later. Okay? And so I'm going to adjust what's in the sutra a little bit, just so that it makes a little bit more sense here. And so what is written in the sutra, well, first of all, what the Buddha taught was just suffering and the end of suffering. Okay, so not much about reincarnation, or not much about what we may assume is Buddhism. What the Buddha taught was how does suffering exist and how do we end suffering. Okay, so how many of us we suffer? So we have some people who don't suffer, huh? That's great. All right. And so if we suffer, we got to be aware that we're suffering. So our breath can help us with that. So first thing we do is we come back to our breath. So we're aware of our in-breath and our out-breath. So that's the first practice. So if you're sitting in sitting meditation, the first thing you may want to do is just come back to your in-breath and your out-breath. That's the first thing. So when you're sitting, breathing in, I'm aware I'm breathing in, breathing out, I'm aware that I'm breathing out. That's the first thing you do. And if your mind starts to run, it's perfectly fine. Just bring it back. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. And once you've honed that part, we have what is breathing in. I'm aware that I'm taking either a long or a short breath. So I'm going to just so breathing in or breathing out, my in-breath or out-breath is either long or short. Breathing in, it's either a long or a short breath. Breathing out is either a long or a short breath. So with meditation and mindfulness, we don't want to force anything. Okay? It should be natural, it should be enjoyable. So breathing in, long or short. Breathing out, long or short. Once we've gotten these 2 down, then we'll move on to the next one, which is breathing in, I become aware of my whole body. So breathing in or breathing out, become aware of body. Breathing in, breathing out, become aware of my whole body. This is actually a very important part of the practice of mindfulness. And I will talk about that more. And then we have breathing in, breathing out. For the 4th one is I calm my whole body. So with these first 2 here, what we're doing is we're bringing our mind back we're calming our mind. And then when we move here, we're being aware of our body, and we're calming our body. So breathing in and breathing out, I start to bring awareness to my mind. I start to calm my mind. Breathing in and out, long or short, I'm starting to become aware of what is happening in my mind. If my breathing is long, it's long. If it's short, it's short. Once we've honed that in, then we're breathing in, I become aware of my body. So our body is actually the vessel for our practice. So if we feel any pain in our body, what does that do? How many of us, if we play sports, have we twisted our ankle? Yeah? I twist my ankle all the time. And so when you twist your ankle, you just feel the pain in your body, right? And you're just like, oh, I want this pain to end. You just go with the limp. You start walking with the limp. And you start to really all the pain is focused there. In Demon Slayer, in the last episode, did you see what happened when Tanjiro, he couldn't run anymore? And then he went into he was reminded to go back into his breathing. And then he was fast as lightning. I'm trying not to do spoilers, right? Do you guys remember that? So that's very similar. So he had an ailment in his body. But what he did is he returned to his breathing to focus to that point of pain or where to put the pressure. And then all of a sudden he was able to find the strength to move forward. We can also do that. As humans, we actually can be a Buddha. We can have moments of enlightenment in our daily life. But it all comes back to living in harmony with our body. Like sometimes we can do so much stuff with our body that we might not even know that ends up being very toxic to our body, especially as young people. And so maybe now we might not be so focused on what we're eating or what we're consuming in our daily life. So many of us, we might like to be, instead of having a proper meal, we might be eating chips. Nothing wrong with chips, but proper meal and chips, empty calories, right? And so after we finish eating, we might feel not so well. I don't know if you guys feel that. Maybe you guys are still young. So now, at my age now, when I eat a lot of junk food, I start to feel it in my body. And I start to regret what I'm doing. But sometimes what makes me go to junk food is because maybe I'm going through depression. Maybe I'm stressed. Maybe school is taking the best of me. Maybe what's happening in my household is causing me a lot of stress. So with mindfulness, coming back to our body, we can actually see what is happening outside of us. So aware of body, I feel pain in my digestive system. What did I eat earlier? Oh, I ate junk food. Why? Am I sad? Am I suffering? What's going on? Am I lonely? Just through these three, we can already see if we're going through depression, going through stress in our daily life. We can see our body kind of start to go kind of off. And once we become aware of that, we can use our breath to help us to calm our body. It's okay. I'm here. My breath is here for me. I'm here for you now. I'll take care of you now. So if you have an ailment if you twisted your ankle, if your stomach hurts, if your shoulders hurt, it's okay. Just bring your breath back to that part of your body and take care of it. Take care of yourself. It's quite amazing what the breath can do for us. And so there's 4 more sections for our feelings, our mind, and the object of mind. And honestly, this is all you need. This is all you need in your daily life, is these 16 exercises of mindful breathing. But I want to touch very briefly on that. But it's a very important practice. But I want to offer you these 4 here. So when you're practicing meditation, maybe tomorrow morning, when we have our meditation session, you can actually just start with these 4. When you're sitting down, just come back to your breath, coming in and out, aware of your breathing. Then you move on to the second one. Is it a long? Is it a short breath? Follow it all the way through, from the beginning to the end. Follow all the way through, from the beginning to the end. And then come back to your body. Am I tired? Am I lonely? Am I sad? Am I happy? Always ask yourself, are you happy? We have that choice. And then, if you're feeling any ailment, if you're feeling anything in your body, just calm your body. Release into the earth. The earth embraces everything, good or bad. So it will embrace any tensions we may have in our body. So if we're feeling stress, what is the first place you feel when you're feeling stress? Anybody? What's the first place that has pain? Anyone? For me, it's either my shoulders or actually my stomach starts to turn. I can't digest food because I'm stressed or I'm working too much. So you can be aware of this. If you're feeling any kind of stress in your daily life, see what's the first place that kind of goes off. And that's the start of us taking care of ourselves. So once again, the first 4 exercises of mindful breathing is breathing in, breathing out. I become aware of my in and my out breath. The second one is breathing in and breathing out. It's either I'm aware if it's a long or a short breath. Third one, breathing in or breathing out. I become aware of my body. And third, breathing in or breathing out. I calm my body. You might run into this sometime later on in your life. And who knows, maybe it becomes of some kind of help. Let us listen to one sound of the bell, and then we can continue. Everyone still doing okay? Be honest. Yeah, I see some people kind of dozing off. Let's roll our shoulders a little bit. Get back to the body, roll it back. We have to roll our head around. Slowly take care of the body, aware of each and every movement of your body. Wake the body up, thank the body. You can even give yourself a little pat. Yeah, the blood flow. If I had a camera, I would take a picture of each and every one of you, and I will show you later on to show you what I'm looking at. Maybe you'd be surprised. So growing up as an Asian American in society now, it's tough. That's a lot of stuff going on for myself. I just want to share my experiences. I grew up with a lot of suffering, actually, because one is I never got a chance to truly understand my parents' suffering, because they were refugees from the war, so they were boat people, and they came over, and so when I asked them about how was that like, they would never respond because there's so much trauma. They would not tell me anything because there's so much trauma. They don't want me to hear about that. And so most of their life was to ensure that I lived a good life. So they invest a lot of their time into the work to make sure that I had my comforts at home. But what that did is that I actually don't know who my parents are, because they're so invested into work that I actually don't see them at home. I go home, I go to school, I come home, do homework sometimes, maybe eat something, and then I go to sleep, and then I wake up, I go to school, and I barely see my parents. Maybe the time I get to hang out with my parents is like tops 2 hours. And as a young person at the time, I thought that was life. I thought that was like cool, because like I'm not bounded to my parents, or my parents, they didn't control me as much. How many of you guys go through that? Some of us, yeah. And so sometimes we want to live in harmony with our family, but we aren't in touch with them as much. So sometimes I kind of wish our parents were here so that I can also talk, because it's kind of both sides. There's the children's side. Sometimes the parents like, hey, bring the kids to the monastery so that we can fix them. That's what I've had some people approach me like that sometimes. Hey, fix my child. I'm like, I can't fix your child. I can only be with them. I can practice with them, but I can't fix them. It's the presence we offer to each other. Are we willing to offer ourselves, our love to each other? But first of all, are we able to love ourselves first? Are we able to know who we are and love ourselves first? So on the path of searching for oneself, it actually starts with understanding who we are. So to start to have compassion for oneself, we need to understand who we are as a person. What do we like? What do we need? What nourishes us? And when we take care of ourselves, we're actually taking care of our family. We're taking care of our parents. If we're living happily, if we're taking care of ourselves in such a way where we're not stressed, we're finding joy, we're finding what nourishes us, we're happy, then our parents don't need to worry about us too much. And when our parents don't worry about us too much, they might feel more relieved. They might feel more lighter in their daily life. But if we continue to live in such a way where maybe we are consuming a lot of things that might not be as nourishing, we might be losing ourselves, we might be living other people's experiences, then it causes worry. It causes worry in the household. And at that time, when worry comes up, then misunderstanding comes up. And so sometimes, okay, the parents, all I do is I go to work so my family can have a living, my family can be safe, my family can have the food, my family can be fine. My children should be happy because they have everything they need. And then sometimes the children, no, I'm not happy at all. I have everything. I can go to school, have food, have clothes, play games all day. I could hang out with my friends all day. But actually, I feel there's like a void inside. It's like, I don't have my parents. I don't have my loved ones. That's the void. I have everything else. But the one who is offering me everything is the one I don't have. So how can we make ourselves more present to them? So this was a journey for me it's part of the reason why I became a monk, was to discover myself so that I can take care of myself, so that my parents don't need to worry about me. Even though I moved far away from them, they don't need to worry about me. But now I've learned to live in such a way where I truly have this, well, not truly, I understand myself to a certain point, and I have enough compassion for myself. So I don't throw my life out the window. I stop now, I take care of now, and I take care of my family, my parents, my society. It's interesting now, the direction our society is headed. How many of us are worried about where our society is headed? Yeah, maybe look around. Keep your hands up, maybe look around. Yeah, might be a little worried. There's a lot of stuff going out there. But if we really want to make something about it, if we really want to be about it, it starts with us. I don't know how many of you guys listen to Michael Jackson. Maybe out of that era, out of a different era, huh? Okay. There's a phrase, there's a lyrics that he has that it says, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." So be the change you want to see in the world. So if you want to change, if you want to make change, you have to be the change. And on your own, it might sound very difficult, and it is very difficult. But when it's done together with friends, when it's done together as a community, a positive community, you can make change. Trust me. I think I will leave some time for some questions. I want to make sure I'm ending on time as well. I don't want to talk too much, but also because I can sit up here and talk for a while. So if anyone has any questions, anything, literally anything, it can be about, whatever comes to your mind. But it has to be a good question. It might help other people. I see one hand in the back here. So wait for the microphone.
My question is, how would you categorize friends in this, between family and friends? Are friends just a step below family in terms of priority, or who would you say to people?
So where would I categorize friends within the tier of loved ones? Does that make sense? How do I categorize friends within the whole math problem? For me, friends are very important. I actually don't see them more or less than family, because friends, they play a very important part for ourselves. And so in our practice, we actually have what's called the 4 gratitudes. And so the first gratitude is gratitude to our parents who have given us life. The second gratitude is for our teachers who have shown us the way of the practice. So a teacher can really be anybody, anything that we've learned something from. Our third is in gratitude to our friends on the path, our peers on the path. And the fourth one is in gratitude to the earth, in gratitude to all beings in the animal, plants, and mineral worlds. And so to put it into a category like where you should invest your time most in, I wouldn't necessarily say do this more than the other, but what I would say is with your friends, if you are having positive friends that really nourish you, go for it. But also, don't forget about your family. Your parents can also be your friends. Because friends, what they do on the path is they support you in your endeavors. They support you in your life. Our family is what we are born into. Our family has this unconditional love for each other. And I know in Asian culture, family is very important. And so, how are we nourishing our family? But with that, with our friends are also, they're not better or more or less than our family, or our family is not more or less than our friends. There's a way that it nourishes us in our life, in our just path. And so there's gratitude that can be given to not only our family, but also our friends. Does that make sense? Yeah. There's a question here. So maybe before we ask this question, let us listen to a sound of the bell before the next question.
So, what does a positive community look like? How do you find one and build one?
What does a positive community look like? How to find one and build one. So, what I find in a positive community is a community that lives in harmony. So living in harmony with each other, getting to know each other. So actually a community can actually also be a group of friends. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be like a practice community like here, but it can also be a group of friends. A group of friends that nourish each other, that do similar things with each other, and that support each other. I think supporting each other is the most is the line here. Is how do we have a community, a group of friends that support us? And so these people in our community, we live in a way where we don't judge each other. We live in a way where we live in harmony. We support each other on our path. So in the community, especially like in this community, for example, we have a lot of differences. And, you know, the monastics here, there's times where we get very angry at each other, believe it or not. But it's very normal. It's a part of life. But in the end, we try to live in harmony with each other because we still support each other on our path. So here, in this community, we come and we practice mindfulness to take care of oneself. And so we do everything to support that energy. And we continue to build with that. But with your friends or with your community, you try to find ways to where you live in harmony with your community. Because actually the harmony is going to be what breaks through the differences. It's going to be what breaks through any kind of challenges you encounter as a community. And so a positive community is a community that where you are receiving nourishment, support, and living in harmony. If you're not receiving nourishment, support, and are not living in harmony, then it may not be as positive for you. And so you need to recognize that and see that. Is the community or my group of friends that I'm in, are they supporting me? Am I receiving nourishment? And are we in harmony? If I'm receiving nourishment and I'm receiving support, but we're not living in harmony, we can find ways to live in harmony or to improve the harmony amongst each other. But if it's still nourishing and I'm getting support, it's still positive in some way. But sometimes the harmony might not be there 100%. So we find ways. There's practices that we have, like the practice of beginning anew in our practice, to where we can rebuild the harmony. We can rebuild the communication. And so this is a little bit about positive community, or what I see as a positive community, but also how to build it is the harmony. So our family can be a small community. And so living in harmony with family, living in harmony together. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, okay, this question. Does anyone want to ask another question? There's one here. Here. Raise your hand high. Let us listen to the sound of the bell before you ask your question. So our friend's question is, how do we deal with loss? How do we deal with the passing of a loved one? And being, throughout our daily life, seeing what could have been, or reminded about the loss of a loved one. So, as you may know, here in Plum Village, we lost our teacher. So we lost Thầy about 1.5 years ago. And even though for me, we weren't blood related, but he was a spiritual father of mine, or he is a spiritual father of mine. And to many of us here, and also to many people, thousands of people, millions of people in the world. And so his loss, or what we consider a loss, was very hard or it was a challenge for me. But I'm reminded about one time Thầy he shared about how do we deal with loss. When someone dies, a part of us dies with them. A part of us dies with that person. But when someone dies, that person lives within us. And so sometimes we may get caught into what could have been, or what life could be now if that person was still here. But actually, with the practice of mindful breathing and with the practice of coming back, and we're actually continuing that person. So if it's our parents, we're actually a continuation of our parents. So what they've transmitted to us, we're actually just continuing them. They might have passed away physically, but they're still so alive within us, spiritually and deep within. And so this breath that you're breathing now, not only are you doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for your mother, your father. You're doing it for Thầy. You're breathing for him. You're breathing for them. It sounds crazy, but it's actually true. And so, when you look at your body, you see that you inherited it from your parents. But not only your parents, but also their parents. Not only their parents, but also their parents. So this body, the fact that you are here, is kind of crazy. Like, what is the percentage of you being here right now? Throughout this whole thing we call life, throughout all the humans that have lived, all the history that we've been through, you are here. You get the opportunity to live. You get the opportunity to breathe. I think we know a little bit about science and how life works. And so you fought off a lot of stuff to get here, to make life possible. Like, the fact that you're here, it's a miracle. Not the fact that, with this organization of the retreat, but the fact that you're alive is really a miracle. And we continue this life for those who aren't able to live, who aren't able to live physically. We live for them. We breathe for them. We smile for them. We walk for them. And they're so happy because of that. They get to see life through your eyes. They've transmitted to us everything that they've known. So it's up to us to continue their legacy. We build our legacy, but we continue their legacy at the same time. And so yes, there's a loss. The person is not there physically anymore. But when we're sitting, we can be reminded about what they've done to our life, and we can be happy because we've gotten to meet that person in our life, and we get a chance to continue that person in our life. And so when I look at the altar of our teacher, I'm reminded about, wow, yeah, I can mourn the loss, but I can also celebrate him being alive through my living, through the way I live my life. And I do him no justice if I'm not taking care of myself. If I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not taking care of my mind and my body, I'm just throwing my life out, and I'm no longer living for them and no longer living for myself. And so we lose 2 people, or we lose however many people at the same time. And so cherish your life. Be present. Cherish your life. Like, it's quite amazing. I think as you grow older, you will see how amazing it is. But it's really a miracle that you're here. And so dealing with loss is something we have to eventually deal with. But when we live for that person, life becomes actually much more worthwhile. It's no longer living for ourselves anymore. We're living for a whole lot of people. We're living for our ancestors, we're living for our parents, we're living for their ancestors. So I hope that's helpful. I think I have time for one more question, a written question here. So let me read this question here. The more I grow up, the more I realized how much impacts my family had left on me, and not all are positive. I also realized as I matured that my parents aren't figures with traits that I could admire and respect. With these 2 things, I sometimes have a very hard time connecting with them. What can I do about this? So this question is sometimes, or how I understand it is, there's things that we might have received or we see that our parents do that we may not necessarily agree with, but also there's some traits in there that you see in yourself that I just can't do. Like, I don't like it. And so we can do something about that. So actually, with this whole ancestry thing, when we talk about living for people, we actually inherit a lot of stuff from our past, stuff from our parents, from their parents, and so on. And so sometimes the suffering that we may experience is actually the suffering of our parents. It might not necessarily be our suffering, but it's actually our parents' suffering. So for example, my mom, she was a boat person, and so she's very afraid of the ocean. So when she's surrounded by a big body of water, she freaks out. And I inherited that. So sometimes I'm in the ocean, I'm swimming, and I might panic. I freak out. I'm like, why am I panicking? But it's actually something that you inherit. So I think I've inherited that from my parents. Because of my mom's fear from the ocean, I think I've gotten that some way or somehow. But I like to swim. You know? So I'm swimming out there and then I panic and it's just like, what is this? You know? It's like, I want to swim, but I can't because I'm scared. But when I realized that, oh, this is my mom suffering, I can transform that suffering. I can no longer, so I can now, if I see that, okay, I received this from my mother, and this is her suffering. So it's up to me to transform it, so it doesn't have to be continued. It doesn't have to continue to be transmitted to the next generation. So to my children, to the younger generation. And so us being here now, we may be receiving a lot of traits, negative or positive, but it's up to us to see what's positive so that we can continue to transmit, or what's negative so that we can transform and not transmit. Does that make sense? So we see the good things, we continue it. We see the bad things, we stop it there, and we take care of it. We don't let it continue. So when we look in society, we can see what's happening in society. We look in our family, we can see what's happening in our family. We can continue what's beautiful, and what we don't consider as beautiful, we can stop, we take a look, and we can transform it there so that it doesn't have to continue. And it all starts with our breath, with our breathing. Our breathing can be so simple, but it can be so profound. It can help us out so much. This is a great question, and I will pass this on to our Dharma teachers. I think there's a couple other questions, but I'll pass it on to our Dharma teachers so that we can continue to address this as well. But also to our Dharma sharing facilitators. I think you've heard the question, and so in your Dharma sharing, you can continue to elaborate or share more about it, because this is some deep stuff. This is the deep Dharma, and so it can be very profound and helpful. But these are very great questions here. But unfortunately, I don't have enough time to answer them all. I wish I did, but I'd like to end our session here. And thank you so much for your patience and your attention. I really appreciate it. It's really an honor to sit here and be in front of so many young friends. And I hope you enjoy the retreat. I know it's just started, but it's going to end really quickly too. And I think those of you who've been here before, you know that. And so it's going to come by very quickly. So take advantage of the time we have together. So thank you so much. And with that, let us end with listening to 3 sounds of the bell. So sit beautifully, sit upright. To close your eyes. You can put your hands down. Relax. Breathing in. Hello, my in-breath. Breathing out. Goodbye, my out-breath. Hello, in-breath. Goodbye, out-breath.